You're listening to The Stainer Angler, and my daddy is the host.
All right, special thanks to my daughter for the introduction. My name is Rick Crawford, and I am the host of the Sustainable Angler podcast. So I'm stoked to share this interview with you. On today's episode, I have Wes Carter, who is the president at Atlantic Packaging and founder of A New Earth Project. You may remember Wes from episode 39 when he was just launching A New Earth Project. And since then, Wes and his team have been busy revolutionizing the sustainable packaging industry. In this interview, we discuss everything from consumers increasingly demanding sustainability from brands, trends in sustainable packaging, and some innovative solutions such as packaging made from mushrooms and seaweed that Atlantic Packaging and A New Earth Project are bringing to market. Be sure to check out my website, thesustainableangler.com, to read my weekly blog posts, get caught up on previous episodes, and stay tuned as I will be releasing some brand new merchandise this spring. The Sustainable Angler is available anywhere you listen to podcasts and is now airing Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Charleston's first and only community-supported radio station, Home Radio 96.3 FM. The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies and A New Earth Project, the sustainability initiative of Atlantic Packaging.
We set out with the New Earth Project to really start a movement.
It's a global coalition of people who are deeply concerned and want to accelerate the transition away from problematic packaging to more sustainable solutions.
Our entire value proposition was built on helping companies package things better. We were doing sustainability before sustainability was cool. We just called it packaging optimization. And packaging optimization really is about using less. And we built our whole business on that. You know, people send us their products, their goods, and we help them design packaging systems and solutions for the least possible cost, utilizing the least amount of material. Use less is always the right answer.
And that's what I see with companies like A New Earth Project is it's like, we're just trying to create solutions for big companies and small, that makes it easier for them, cheaper for them, whatever it is, and then has less impact. Not just trying to tell people you should have less impact and making the choice forced on them. Like, make it better for everybody, and it'll make it better for the whole world.
We see the problem, and we are with you.
Emerger Strategies helps our clients transform their businesses from a take-make-waste business model to an environmentally restorative and socially just business model, all while boosting profitability. If you're a business owner who's interested in transforming your company, you can take the first step by completing Emerger Strategies' free, simple sustainability assessment. For more information, visit our website at www.emergerstrategies.com.
Thanks for having me, Rick. It's good to be back on, and really appreciate your voice in the fishing community and the work that you're doing. And ultimately, I think that the world of fishing and all the human beings that are so involved in this great pastime and sport, you know, really have an opportunity to be change makers. And do something really significant for our oceans, lakes, and rivers. And really, my personal story is a lot about being a fisherman. It's a lot about being just an outdoor person. And you know, I grew up, you know, my grandfather founded Atlantic in 1946, and but the grandfather that I remember was actually a fisherman. Most people who hear the story of Atlantic hear about my grandfather and his weekly newspaper, and he fought the Ku Klux Klan with that newspaper and won a Pulitzer, and all that happened when he was a really young man. I mean, he won a Pulitzer when he was 32 years old, but you know, when I was a kid, he was a fisherman. My grandfather was a writer. He lived in Central Florida. He wrote a lot of articles for Field and Stream and Florida Sportsman. He spent a lot of time on the Bassmasters tour, wrote a lot of, he actually wrote a lot of autobiographies for professional fishermen in Florida at that time. And so I'd go down to Florida to visit my grandfather, and it was crappie fishing and brim fishing from dark to dark. And so I just sort of grew up around that. My father's a big outdoorsman, so I spent a lot of time in the woods as a kid. I was an Eagle Scout, growing up. And then I also grew up at Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. So salt water was really the backdrop of my life. And I just always loved the outdoors. I hiked the Appalachian Trail. I lived in the mountains of Utah for several years after college. And most of my identity as a person is as an outdoor person. And interestingly enough, in some of the work we've been doing today, over 50 million people in the United States consider themselves outdoor people. And we're beginning to coin that demographic as the outdoor state. And our perspective at A New Earth Project is the outdoor state, that 50 million people are actually pretty cohesive in the way they feel about things like clean water, clean air, saving wild places. And a lot of what we're trying to do these days is really activate that community, that 50 million people, which I associate with. But so how A New Earth Project came to be, when I started working at Atlantic selling packaging, my life as an outdoor person really didn't have a whole lot of coordination with my professional life. And I think I was probably caught in that cultural paradigm that a lot of us get stuck in, where it's like, now it's time to go to work. It's time to stop playing. And it's time to go to work, and work looked a certain way, you wore certain clothes and you spent a certain time in the office. And, and that was the early part of my career. And I always loved Atlantic. I always really enjoyed what we do. We have an incredible culture. I love the people. And I was raised by a salesman, and, I had a lot of that in me, and I've always enjoyed the creating solutions for customers and identifying challenges. And that was a lot of what Atlantic did. But there was also a piece of me, especially as I got into my mid 30s, that was feeling a little just disillusioned. It was sort of like, I'm pretty good at this. It's a family company. I'm growing business, but like, what is the greater purpose? And I've been a spiritual person my whole life. I've been a seeker my whole life. And I think part of what was going on was sort of this, I was trying to reconcile with the soul inside of me that was, looking for purpose. And at one point I almost left Atlantic. I thought maybe I'm supposed to be doing something else. And, I got an intuitive hit one time that maybe that wasn't the right way to go. And so I just kept focused. And as I got a little bit older, I started traveling a lot to surf and fish in my pastime. I mean, those were the two things I did the most. I did a lot of marlin fishing in the Caribbean and places like the Dominican Republic and the Bahamas. And I was surfing in Central America, and even took a trip over to Indonesia. And what I started to witness more and more, from when I was 18 to when I was, 36, was plastic pollution was more and more prevalent. I was seeing it with my own eyes. And when I was in Indonesia on a surf trip about 6 years ago now, I remember looking around in the most beautiful place I'd ever been in my life, most beautiful island chain. The Mentawai is spectacular. And there's plastic pollution everywhere. And I remember having this realization that a lot of this is packaging. And it's not all packaging that I sell, but it's a supply chain that I'm a part of. And I also had this realization that there was not a lot of people in our industry talking about this, there was sort of this intentional blind spot that that it was really ugly and no one was talking about it. We were just kind of clipping along. And, I felt a little like my grandfather tapping me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Wes, this might be that purpose thing you've been looking for." And so sustainability was something that was starting to be talked about more in our industry. And I think my experience as a fisherman and an outdoor person really informed my passion for it. And I started to believe that, the only way to really change the plastic pollution crisis and heal these areas that, we've created all this impact was for the supply chain to shift. Like beach cleanups are a great thing, but if you don't turn off the tap, we're never going to solve these issues. And I also started doing a lot of investigating and came to understand that today human beings put 11 million metric tons of plastic in the ocean every single year. And as ugly as that is, at the rate that we're going, the predictions are by 2030, 2035, that number could be as much as 36 million tons annually. So the rate would triple over the next 10 or 12 years, and it's already really bad, And so that's when I said, you know what? Atlantic Packaging has a seat at the table. We're a large packaging company. We service the largest consumer products companies and retail brands in the world. We have a seat at the table. If we start advocating for sustainability, if we start innovating these new products and helping our customers transition away from a lot of these products, maybe we can have a global impact. Maybe we can really have an impact. And that really sparked a passion in me and a drive in me that I'd never felt before. And so finally, I was talking about this a lot publicly in our industry on LinkedIn. And a friend of mine said, hey, man, I know you're a surfer too. And I've always thought that surfing had a cultural significance that was understated, that people did not acknowledge the cultural significance of surfing. And if I look at my life since the 1980s, that's very obvious, in retrospect. And so he said, have you ever considered the surfing vertical as one to focus on and do some storytelling around sustainability? And I said, that's a great idea, and so it really evolved from there to what if we took our resources and gave our packaging resources to the outdoor industry specifically, surfing, snowboarding and skiing, fishing, hunting, backpacking, because that outdoor state and those brands, they should understand sustainability and know why we're doing this. It shouldn't be a hard sell in that vertical. Yeah. And historically, I didn't focus on the outdoor vertical because it was not all that large. But, this was an opportunity to get that industry on board, make these shifts within that industry, and hopefully create a cultural movement that would influence the greater supply chain. And I coined that initiative A New Earth Project. So long answer to your question, but that's the history.
No, well, I love it. And what you're talking about is exactly right. It's like, people who are passionate, this outdoor state that you're talking about, they want to protect what they love, and they punch way above their weight when it's threatened by something. And so A New Earth Project and Atlantic Packaging being part of the solution is something everyone can get behind, in my humble opinion.
Well, and one of the things I love about packaging is it's tangible for people. Like my premise is to all these brands, like, packaging, first of all, it's ubiquitous. Like everyone knows packaging, and plastic pollution is obvious to human beings. And, this is a problem that we have a clear line of sight of. Yep. There is no demographic that's pro-pollution. I haven't found those people yet. They're like, more pollution. And so many of these environmental issues can be a political hand grenade. But my perspective is this one really isn't. And I've talked to Democrats, I've talked to Republicans, I've talked to independents, and everyone agrees that we should clean up the plastic pollution problem, and sustainability and sustainable packaging is the way to do it. And we need enlightened brands to lead this. And I feel like our role at Atlantic is to give them innovative and creative packaging solutions that meet their packaging needs, and also acknowledge that, we have to value healthy environment. We have to value healthy life. That has to have a seat at the table. And we can no longer ignore the impact that we are having as human beings. Those days are in the rearview mirror. We got to get our heads out of the sand.
Yeah, and it's, I think it's where we are just in the life cycle stage of planet Earth, with the number of people on the planet, that, everyday decisions make an impact. And so I think you're right in shining a light on that and helping those companies who want to do the right thing for the environment, and providing them a pathway, right? Because that's part of the obstacle they face of going. And I have had companies, actually, you and I have talked about this, who have come to me and said, hey man, like this is getting serious. Like we gotta start designing for circularity to meet regulations. Can you point us in the right direction? Fortunately for me, I'm a friend of Wes's, so that's an easy transition for me to make. But that being said, the point is that these companies know that they need to do it, and everyone wants to do it for the right reasons, I think, but they just need the pathway. And I think that's what y'all are providing for them. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, what we are seeing more and more is the awakening is happening, certainly within the outdoor brands, but beyond that as well. I mean, we have a lot of what I would call enlightened brands that are more traditional, e-commerce, retail, type organizations that are seeing this as well. There's a few factors. I think, there's a few factors going on. One is you've got a changing just demographic of human beings. So if you look at who you're servicing, who your customers are, the under 40 crowd is one of the largest demographics in the country, buying demographics. And, if you meet anyone under 40, they all care about the environment. Like that is no longer, a debate with young people. They all care. And so if you're a brand and you're looking at your customer base and you've got the largest buying demographic in the whole country that cares about one thing universally, like you've got to start to create products, materials. You got to acknowledge your packaging when you are marketing and branding and selling to that demographic. So changing consumer demand around sustainability, to me, is actually the number one driver of this change. I think the other one is the problems of plastic pollution, as an example, are so much more visible. You mentioned, following along New Earth Project on your phone. I mean, we hear a lot about the ills of social media. However, there's a really massive silver lining. I mean, we have global visibility in real time of challenges, problems, but it also allows us to collaborate, in a really unique way. It's made the world a really small place in many ways. And I think when you're talking about creating really transformational solutions for global problems, the ability to communicate visually, globally, in real time cannot be understated. Like, I don't know that we could fix this problem without social media, because the ability to create a movement is such a big deal. And then, the other piece is brands are looking for creative solutions, and they're also looking for solutions that are economical. I say all the time, like, because for the first thing brand says is, well, we want to be more sustainable, but we're worried it's going to be way too expensive. And my response is, well, if it's way too expensive, it's not very sustainable because no one's going to buy it. And so we do see new technologies come to market that it might be kind of cool, but it's just not economically viable. So at Atlantic, one of the roles we feel like we have to play is a clearinghouse for technology. And, we are looking at the total cost, like where can we shave off costs wherever we can to be able to implement these new material solutions. But, like most things in our world, technology wins, innovation wins. But what we're trying to do is say we are going to innovate in the direction of life. We're not going to just innovate for the sake of innovation. Cost and convenience are no longer going to be the only two things we're acknowledging. Cost is important. We want things to be convenient and easy for consumers, but healthy life has a prominent seat at the table going forward in everything that we're doing. And I think that's true of pretty much everything in our world these days, whether it's food, whether it's, building products, whether it's packaging, everything has to acknowledge that without healthy life, we got nothing.
That's right. And it's acknowledging, the external costs of some of the things that historically are not accounted for. I was saying, we value life, healthy life as you're describing it. And that's something that now is going to be in consideration in line with the economic cost of this product that we have to start accounting for, which I think is, if every company did this, it would be alarming probably to a lot of them. But the fact that Atlantic Packaging is providing solutions that are ready is the difference, right? Because it's the feeling of, okay, we acknowledge there's a problem. I don't know what to do about it. And having the solution and being able to provide them with that is is huge because problem solved, right?
Well, it is a big investment for us as an organization. A lot of these solutions that we're bringing to market may take us 2 or 3 years of a lot of investment and a lot of R&D before we even have a prototype that's viable. So it is a strategic business decision for our organization to invest this much time and energy in these things. But there's also, an economic benefit to us if we create something that's revolutionary that really addresses a specific problem. Hey, that's business 101. Like create innovative products that address a solution to grow your business. So I actually see sustainability not just in packaging, but sustainability sort of across our world as an amazing catalyst for innovative companies. And looking at the fishing space, I mean, if anyone wants to be innovative, it's the people making fishing gear. Like I want to have the latest and greatest lure that attracts more fish and gets more bites. And so like there's a baked in innovative spirit within fishing that I think makes what we're doing seem pretty obvious to those brands.
Yeah, and I don't know, Wes, if we can share this, but you shared some innovative prototypes of some packaging solutions, and I don't know, can we talk about some of that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
We can talk.
So Wes and I email and text crazy ideas to each other, and occasionally Wes goes, "Hey, I remember what we were talking about. Check this out," and it's like blows my mind. I'm like, yes, this is it. And so one of these is, and I'll let you describe it, but it eliminates the plastic packaging. Is it the blister wrap? Is that what it eliminates?
Blister packaging.
Yeah.
So when we are, a lot of times people ask me, well, like how are you identifying what products need to be innovated? And plastic is so ubiquitous and it's used in so many different areas. And what I tell people first is like, we don't have a war on plastic. There's certain parts of our world where plastic is revolutionary and makes a lot of sense. I mean, the screen that I'm talking to you on has plastic in it. This mouse has plastic in it, but these are not single-use items. These are items that are used for years and years and years. And so, but where we really see the problems are this single-use plastic. It's used one time and then discarded. And most of these materials don't break down in the environment. They can be around for hundreds or even 1,000 years. And I think anybody with common sense can say that doesn't make any sense. So what we've tried to do is identify those single-use plastic items that are the most likely to leak in the environment. So single-use plastic that's most likely to leak into the environment is what we call consumer destined single-use plastic. So when you go into a tackle shop, and I go into a tackle shop once a week, you probably go in more than that. But the one thing I see a lot of is these blister packs. So you've got a paperboard card, a printed card, and then you've got a plastic molded blister that is glued to that card. And it may have a lure in it. It may have hooks in it. It may have weights in it. It may have a cork in it. That's a really common product. Well, as we all know, if you go to the tackle store in the morning, you're getting ready to go fishing, a lot of us just throw all that stuff in our tackle box, or maybe we put it in a paper bag and hop on our boat. And so you're opening those things on your boat out there in the elements. And, me included, I have watched those things fly out of my boat. I know we all have. It just happens, sure. And every one of those that flies out of your boat is going to be in that marsh. Your 10th great grandchildren, are going to be alive, and that thing's still going to be in the marsh. And so to me, that's just unacceptable. So what we said is we need to develop a product that would be more sustainable in that application. We came across a small company out of the Midwest that was replacing plastic blisters with molded paper in a really innovative and creative way that was really appealing to the consumers. It really pops on the shelf. And it was so intriguing that we actually acquired this company several months ago. And so now we're in the manufacturing business. We have a printing operation in North Carolina where we can do real high-end printing. We've invested in some molding equipment, but this product is called Paperform. And we basically take the same card, you still have your printed card that you would normally have, but instead of a plastic blister, it's a molded paperboard blister. So we impregnate the paper with water, moisturize the paper, and then we mold it in the same configuration as the traditional plastic blisters. We can do all kinds of windows and things like that so you can see and touch the product if you still need to, because that's important to a lot of customers. So we've overcome some of the visibility concerns, and it really looks awesome on the shelf. There's a lot of products that are already being utilized, everything from multi-packs of toothpaste to chapstick, and we're working on a lot of other products around cosmetics and things like that as well. So I'm super stoked about that. It would give our fishing customers and inevitably the consumers a fully paperboard, curbside recyclable package for lures and hooks and corks and whatever else it may be. And on the off chance it does fly out of your boat, it's made out of paper. So it's going to break down in 6 weeks, 8 weeks. We don't want to litter the marshes with paper either, but when it's made from an organic, natural substrate, Mother Nature will close the loop for us. So that to me is one of the coolest innovations we've come to market with in a long time. And I'm really stoked to get people in the fishing world exposed to this product.
And well, as am I, and back to what you were saying earlier, that flies out. Well, that goes into back to the healthy life, right? And saying, well, if this doesn't harm fish that may ingest this, and therefore we ingest and live unhealthier lives as a result of this, it's problem solved. I mean, there's just nothing better than being able to say that, right? It's going, all right, problem solved. We got it figured out.
What I like about a product like this, and one of the things we're always focused on too, I don't just want a product that's more sustainable. I want one that's cool too.
Right.
I want when the companies that we're doing this for go, oh man, because when this is on the shelf at a tackle shop and you're walking through there, you will identify it. You'll go, that company is doing this because they're trying to get away from single-use plastic. It's real obvious. Yeah. And to me, I think that can be additive to people's, top line. I mean, I think you're going to increase sales, because if you walk into a tackle shop and there's two lures sitting side by side and one's in a traditional plastic blister and one's in this paper form blister, I think a lot of people are going to choose the paper form just because they're like, this company is obviously more innovative and they're focused on sustainability. And I believe the fishing community more and more is looking for those type of solutions. I know I am.
Yeah, and I am too. I mean, those are the types of considerations that go through my mind when I'm shopping, and I think to a lot of other anglers. And what, but on that note, because we're talking, we talked about some trends, right? If you're under 40, you're looking for this stuff for sure. That's part of your sort of buying decision making process. But where do you see sustainable packaging or more sustainable packaging heading in the next few years, and maybe any challenges or opportunities there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the biggest trend that we're seeing in our, in this country and around the world is legislation called EPR, which stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. And EPR has been around a long time in Europe. They've got EPR all over Canada, Australia. It's relatively new to this country, at least in packaging. Now, we've had EPR for things like batteries and carpet and paint, all these more, items that you just can't throw in the garbage can. But basically what EPR says is we are no longer going to say that consumers are solely responsible for the cost of disposing of these products and creating circularity, that if it's the packaging circularity is going to go back to the brands. Mm-hmm. So if you are a brand that utilizes certain types of packaging, it's going to be your responsibility to make sure that the recycling rates for whatever packaging you're using are at a certain level. And so there's several EPR laws that have passed in the United States. The most significant one is in California, which is a big deal for fishing community. The entire, California's not the whole West Coast, but it's damn close, and that whole state has a very significant EPR law that has already passed. The law is called SB 54, Senate Bill 54, and all of the fee structures for how they're going to put fees on packaging are all being negotiated this year in 2024. And this will really go into effect in 25, 26. But basically, different types of packaging in the state of California will be taxed, where there'll be fees applied to those depending on how problematic it is for recycling. So the more problematic it is, like single-use plastic, are going to carry really high fees. So it's going to get a lot more expensive to utilize single-use plastic. All those fees that are collected by the state then go into investing in upgrading recycling infrastructure, creating, more access in the inner cities and things like that. So the long-term hope is you do two things. These fees on problematic packaging encourage brands to migrate away from those problematic, versions and into more sustainable versions. So as an example, like single-use plastic may have a lot of fee structure on it. Paper packaging would be a lot lower, because paper is a lot more circular today. And so you're trying to drive brands to make decisions that are more sustainable because it's more economically viable now. And then for the brands that don't make those moves, you're collecting fees to help upgrade recycling. But the SB 54 law in California basically says if you don't reach a 65% recycling rate for whatever material it is by 2032, then those products are banned in the state. And so there are a lot of items like we talk about blister packs. The likelihood that blisters become 65% recycling rate in the state of California is super low. I mean, I really don't see any scenario where that happens. And so it will force brands to move in a different direction. And so, like I said, some of this stuff is still, 5, 6, 7 years off before the hammer really falls. But now's the time to start really evaluating that packaging. And, Europe is, I know a lot of the brands that you work with, Europe's a good market for them or a significant market for them. Europe is further ahead of us. They're banning things like EPS, traditional white styrofoam, EPS and EPE foam. Those bans are happening actively now. Products like PVC have been banned in a lot of areas. And so the legislation affecting packaging is just getting started, and it's going to be really profound in the next 5 to 7 years. You've also got the United Nations right now that is negotiating a global plastics treaty that, the hope is that a lot of countries all over the world sign up for like sort of collective action around plastic pollution. So there's a lot going on in that work.
Well, I think what I'm hearing anyway is, there is consumers want it. Regulation is going to force those who don't want it. If you get in early, you have a first mover advantage, right? To attract that customer who's looking for the environmental preferable brand or packaging and things of that. But some folks that listen to this podcast, we talk. I was so blown away by the blister pack thing. It was just, to your point. Yes, I'm guilty of it. Okay, I have opened up lures and everything else on a boat, and it has flown out by accident. It's lost. It's gone. Nothing I can do about it. But I wanted to see if you would also share, because this is really cool, right? It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to see it in work or working in real time. Can you tell us more about what has worked well in the surfing industry? I'm thinking of the surfboard packaging and I mean, and that stuff is rolling. I mean, it is happening.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we first approached the surfing industry, and like I said, I mean, the surfing vertical for packaging is not a tremendous packaging vertical. I mean, it's, in the grand scheme of Atlantic, I probably would have never paid attention to the surfing vertical, but it was such a cool way to tell stories and to really create some inspiration. So what we, and believe it or not, I mean, for people who aren't surfers, I mean, my whole life, I never bought a surfboard that I didn't buy from a surf shop. You go to a surf shop, you buy one off the shelf, or if you're a little better, maybe you get, you order one with your custom dims and all that. but like more and more people are ordering surfboards that are being shipped to their house, me included. I mean, there's a place in North Carolina called Real Water Sports that ships tons of boards all over the country. And that's true, across the board. And so the way that surfboards were being packaged was a lot of bubble wrap, a lot of polypropylene tape, typically a lot of foam, a lot of corrugated. It was not very attractive. It took, a long time to pack, didn't actually protect the boards all that well. It was kind of a disaster when it got to your house. Lots of times there would be 4 or 5 different types of single-use plastic just to get one surfboard shipped. And so we said, what if we try to come up with a plastic-free, fully curbside recyclable, turnkey surfboard shipping system? And we'll address more than just sustainability. Like, we want it to be plastic free, but we also want it to be attractive. We want the consumer, when they open this, for it really to showcase the surfboard. And we want it to be easier to pack. Because right now it's taking these shapers 20, 25 minutes to pack one board. It's not efficient. And so we wanted to look at that. And then we also knew that, surfboard's a big item, and UPS and FedEx really, they're charging these days on dimensional weight, not the actual weight of the product, but how large it is. That there's a formula for creating a dimensional weight. And so the smaller the shipping container, the lower the freight rates are. So we took all that into account. And we came up with, it took us about 6 months of a lot of trial and error, and we utilized a lot of different products. But we ultimately came up with a solution that we called the S3, and it creates a suspension pack where basically the surfboard is floating in the box with the rails being captured by another piece of fiber reinforcement suspension wrap. And so anyway, we created this product. We worked really closely with John Pazell out of Hawaii, who's a big time shaper and shapes boards for a lot of the pros. And we filmed the whole thing. We filmed everything from going to Hawaii and meeting with John the first time to everything we did at our Charlotte, North Carolina-based solution center and creating all this, all the trial and error that went into it. And then we shipped surfboards to a lot of these pro surfers once we had this solution, and we filmed them unboxing it. And then from there, we really worked in trying to present this new shipping solution to a lot of other shapers. And we've really started to create quite a movement within that vertical, where today we've probably got 6 or 7 of the top 10 shapers utilizing our system. Companies like Firewire, which is one of the largest in the world, just signed up and started shipping boards with our solution here recently. Companies like Stewart, Rusty, of course, John Pazell still utilizing our system, Sharp Eye, many others, if you're a surfer that you would know. And so we're really stoked. It's worked out really well, and it's been a great way to tell a story about what can be done. And I tell people all the time, a surfboard on some level is just a widget. If we can do it for a surfboard, we can do it for anything. Right, right. And that's really my message. There is a real opportunity to make significant change, and it can be great for consumers. It can be additive for brands, and it can be great for the environment. This is a problem we can solve, and the surfboard packaging was a way to illustrate that.
Well, I don't know that I could choose a better high note to maybe wrap with than there are sustainable packaging solutions available. If they're not available, I happen to know that Atlantic Packaging has an innovation center where they're testing and doing all sorts of creative ways to find the right solution. So I would encourage, if you are in the fishing industry or are involved with the brand, feel free to reach me directly. I can get you in touch with the folks at Atlantic. Visit their website if anyone wants to dive in there. Wes, where can people find some more of these solutions so they can check them out?
Right. So our website is atlanticpkg.com, and we've also got anewearthproject.com. So if you go to anewearthproject.com, we have a shop on that website that's got all of our sustainable alternatives. And it's not all just custom packaging. A lot of it's like, sustainable curbside recyclable mailers. If you're shipping apparel, we've got all different types of protective packaging to replace things like bubble wrap and air pillows that's common to kind of any brand, and then we've got a lot of custom solutions as well. We just released the first ever fully sustainable curbside recyclable shipping cooler for shipping frozen food, whether it's fish or steak or anything else. And we're super stoked on that. The Cruise Cool, that's on there as well. And you can learn more about A New Earth Project and see some really cool videos and storytelling of the last few years. But yeah, anewearthproject.com, atlanticpkg.com. And then we're pretty active on social media. So at A New Earth Project on Instagram. You can also find us on LinkedIn. And yeah, to your point, I mean, we really believe that Atlantic's role going forward is to activate the innovators. And there's a lot of innovation happening in our industry. Everything from mushroom-based packaging to hemp-based packaging to even packaging made from seaweed. And so, I mean, we think it's a really exciting time to be a part of our industry. And I would just encourage any brands in fishing that are listening to hey, be leaders. This is a great way for you to separate yourself from your competitors and show your customers that you're committed to clean waters, and that's my great hope, that we can all, focus our attention on clean air and clean water is something that we can all agree that we need in this world. And we have the power to usher in that more beautiful world that we know is possible. And I believe this is the way we do it.
Well, I love it, Wes. I always walk away inspired after we chat. So thanks for my morning dose of inspiration, and thanks for y'all's support of the Sustainable Angler. I sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Rick. Your voice is a really important one in the community, and I appreciate the forum, and I'm really excited to continue to collaborate with you and this whole community. And like I said, activating the outdoor state is the way. So thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Sustainable Angler. Special thanks to Wes and the team over at A New Earth Project and Atlantic Packaging for all they're doing to protect what we all love. If you like what you are hearing on the podcast, if you could, please leave a rating and review on iTunes. This helps to grow the Sustainable Anglers audience so that hopefully we can continue to educate and inspire more anglers to protect the planet. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.